Hello everyone, welcome to Big Bird Outdoors, and my name is Nate for those who haven't been here before, and today I want to go over my typical rod setups. So this is kind of my general outfit for what I use for fishing because I'm a multi-species fisherman, and the focus of this video for these rods specifically is going to be versatility and dependability. So you're not going to see your high performance rods for one specific technique or one specific type of fishing. You're going to see a lot of simple setups, simple ideas that you can use and then be able to go for a multitude of species with. So we'll get right into our first setup of rod. Alright, now I'm actually going to go over my first two rods together out of the four, and that's because they kind of, in most of my fishing applications, they work together for the most part. So my first ones, these are both medium action, so a medium action bait caster. This is the Cabela's Pro Guide with the Abu Garcia Black Max reel. Pretty cheap setup, about 120 bucks together, I believe. And the reel's in 6:1 gear ratio, so also about a medium area for the reel speed. And then I have a Shakespeare Ugly Stick spinning rod, also medium action. The bait caster is loaded with 17-pound mono, and the spinning rod is 14-pound mono. And the reason I use medium action specifically for my general carry and those still not necessarily large lines, but for those sizes they are larger lines, is that idea of versatility. So when I bass fish, these are two of my main rods, so I like to have that thicker, but also more versatile line type, so I can use it in different applications and different techniques for bass fishing. But then also, if I switch over to other kinds of fishing, I use these two rods or type of rods specifically for trolling, so trout and walleye especially. I do a lot of trolling with these lines, or these rods, sorry. So I like to have that thicker line, so then if I have to get down deeper and beat into the rocks and everything, it can still hold up, even though I still use fluoro leaders 95% of the time when I'm trolling. But also, these two rods are shorter, so the spinning rod's a 6.5 and the bait caster's only a 6 foot, and I have them shorter again for that, not necessarily the versatility of fishing, but dependability and being able to travel with these rods. So having the smaller rods, especially if you're fishing in smaller boats, moving around a lot, so you're moving them in and out of your car, or just making something easy to handle in the boat, having those shorter rods allows you to do that. Alright, now my next rod setup, this is actually this specific rod I use a lot. This is another Ugly Stick, again going back to the idea of dependability, something you can beat up and just use all the time. This is loaded with, I believe, 10-pound at the moment, but usually I'll go down to 8-pound with this rod and my other rods. Some of them I load usually about half and half with 8 and 10, and these are my changeover, my in-between rods. So a lot of them are used for just about everything in the book, so having that 8 to 10-pound line is very important, because then I can go from finesse fishing for bass to casting out for walleye, even trolling for trout or walleye at sometimes. And then also, if you have that 8-pound test, dropping down to even fish for crappie in a pinch if you want to, because I like to switch my fish that I'm going for a lot of the times, especially going to crappie, because that's probably my favorite to go after in fresh water. So I have, I believe, 6 or 7 rods in this area of 8 to 10-pound and that light medium action, and they're a great rod in that area of versatility, because you can switch over to just about any species you want. And then also, if you then get stuck, where we do a lot of times, where say crappie fishing and you hook a pickerel or a decent bass, then you're not stuck in that area where you're fighting this big fish on a small little tiny rod, because you just switched over from your medium action bass finesse rod, or however you want to use it. Now my final type of rod out of the 4 is going to be a smaller rod. So these are my panfish rods. So a lot of crappie fishing and trout fishing in rivers goes with these. This one specifically actually isn't the one I always use. This is, although I do use Shakespeare for a lot of these rods, but usually I'll go with an Ugly Stick. I have a few of those. I have some that are a little longer that I don't use in rivers necessarily, but this one's a 4.5 foot. I have some 4'8", 5 foots, and then a couple that go up to 6 foot. but usually those ones in the 4.5 to 5 foot range are the ones I'll use in rivers or panfish, because first of all, especially in rivers, they're small, so it's easy to maneuver around if you're in that brush or like tight areas on rivers, or you're wading and don't want a larger rod to deal with. And also with these, I load them with 6 pound typically. Again, kind of what I was talking about with the other rod. Then you have that little bit thicker of line to deal with fish if you do hook something bigger. And it's also a lot easier to maneuver those changes of fish that you're going for if you are going to keep switching over. So that 6 pound line's kind of in the middle, where it's not thick at all, but it's also not like 2 pound where it's really tiny. So that kind of allows you to jumble up what you're fishing for without having to change line or necessarily change up your setup at all. And then also that allows you, if you do get stuck on these small little rods that bend easy and they're pretty flimsy for the most part, then you're able to fight those bigger fish because you have that thicker line to depend on. Just to go over a little overview of the 4 rods that I went over, just to wrap up. I'm not saying this is going to work for everybody. There are guys that are just bass fishermen, they're just trout fishermen, just walleye, just crappie. But if you're a person who likes to fish for many different things, even if you go in one day and you're like, I want to bass fish, oh, there's crappie over there, I want to catch them, or you go into a day not knowing what you want to catch, this is a great setup, or at least a general idea of what you can use if you're that kind of fisherman. If you like that versatility, being able to go after whatever, if you don't have the time to change all your lines and reels and rods and set up 30 different rods, this gives you that ability to just make quick changes on the fly based on what you're catching, not catching, what you're thinking of going from day to day. So most of the time I have all of, or at least 3 of these types of rods in the boat at one time. And of course it's great because I have friends who are specific to one type. So I have friends who are bass fishermen, so then I'll take my bait caster, my bigger spinning, and my smaller spinning rod and use those with them. Or I'll have friends that just want to go trout fishing, so I'll just bring the ones that I troll with. So having those different rods allows you to have that versatility, and also having those rods that aren't necessarily specific to a technique, but they're great at being dependable, strong, simple rods, are great for this type of setup. So if you're trying to catch different fish, or you want to make your fishing easier, or you're a beginner who doesn't necessarily have the big bucks to go buy all the crazy gear that's out there, this is a great setup to use that's very simple to apply to a lot of different areas. All right, thank you for watching. I hope there's something everybody learned today that you can apply to your fishing, whether it's one rod that you might set up in a similar fashion as I do, or you take the whole setup and use it to your advantage. I just hope everybody learned something by watching this. If you would like and subscribe the video, that would help my channel out big time, and I thank you for that. If you want to check out my Instagram, you can go to the description down below at bigbird.outdoors. And if you want to check out my guide service, I do crappie, perch, trout in the rivers and lakes, walleye, pike, and some bass fishing here in Connecticut. If you want to do that, just head to the link in my description and check out my guide service. And thank you again for watching one more time, and hope to see you again.